What's up? This is part two of our album video. If you haven't watched part one, you should watch it. It will be the video before this on my channel. That one was 10 through 6, and this is gonna be 5 through 1. So, the big dogs. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. We are in the top 5, and my number 5 album is the one and only Let's Start Here by Lil Yachty. This album for me was the biggest surprise of 2023.
Yes.
If you told me in 2016 that Lil Yachty, XXL freshman, creator of like Broccoli and Minnesota and From the D to the A, made a psychedelic rock album, I would be like, you're off your rocker. You're like, I'm gonna eat my hat. I would say something like that.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out, like right at 12 on that Friday, I was like in the backseat of an Uber.
Yes, I remember the story.
I was coming home from a club because I was clubbing. I was getting.
Dan gets around. Yeah,
getting
he does his
turned.
thing.
But I was in the backseat and I like put my AirPods in and I played the Black Seminole and I was like, this is the greatest song I've ever heard in my entire life. Let me just say, it is not the greatest song I've heard in my life, but at that moment it was. A lot of people say that this album is like a rock album for people who only listen to hip hop and like don't listen to any other genres. This is far from true. Because I listen to a lot of different genres of music, and I like this album is still very consistent. You have a lot of contributors like Alex G and Mac DeMarco worked on this album. You've got people who have been like in the game for a very long time, like
who have credibility. It's not just he threw something good.
Yeah.
People.
All the songs, they also like flow together very well.
He does blend them together.
He's got like skit. He has like a Bob Ross skit or like vocal sample at the end of "We Saw the Sun," and then it leads into "Drive Me Crazy." Every time that happens, I'm like, oh, you know, the instrumentals are crazy. Every one of them is like something new. A lot of them have big climaxes. Pause. I also saw this live. I just needed to add that. It was a great show. I'm just chill like that. I've seen like all these artists live.
Many people's number 1 album of 2023. It's number 5 for me.
It's gonna be
Scaring the Hose by Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia.
Of course.
This was a highly anticipated album when people heard about it just because of, I mean, it lives up to its name, Scaring the Hose. Coming from 2 artists that just make some of the more popular experimental hip hop out there. Music you would not play in front of other guests or friends of yours, fearing that you would be scaring them. So many of the tracks are very energetic, that you've come to expect from an artist like Danny Brown. In his past projects, he's very in your face, and the song that comes to mind, which is my favorite, is Perfect.
My favorite as well.
Yes. How could you not
love
this
song?
song?
It's the best one. It's like, that's the best
the horns are to die for, and then when JPEG Mafia comes in at the end of the song, takes you for a spin. Their chemistry is very good. They knew what they wanted to do with this album, and they executed for sure.
For sure. My number 4 album is Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. One of my favorite artists all time. One thing about him is that he has a lot of different albums, and they are like all different genres. But a lot of people can agree on like a top 3, which are like the big 3 are Carrie and Lowell, Illinois, and Age of Odds. I have never like loved the Age of Odds as much as the other 2, even though I do think Impossible Soul is probably like one of the greatest songs I've heard in my life. But besides that, I've always been left kind of like down. Like I have these 2 albums that I really like.
And we don't have one for the trifecta.
But now I do, because it is Javelin that has taken the spot. You got some of the best songs of the year on here. I'm not gonna cap. You got Goodbye Evergreen.
Such a good song.
You got So You Are Tired. Shit Talk. I bought the CD.
That's how good it is.
Show it to you. And it has like original artwork from Sufjan. It's really cool. And then it has like a bunch of essays that he wrote, and I have not read them yet. I think I'm gonna save them for, because I feel like they're gonna be kind of like gut wrenching.
Yeah.
So
If
for
the album's an EQ,
yeah,
yes.
I'll save them for like another time.
Taking the 4th spot for 2023 is The Land is Inhospitable and So Are We by
Nice,
Mitski, which
nice.
is such a Mitski title. She is an artist
So
that
Mitski.
I've really taken a liking towards this year specifically. I started off with listening to her album from last year, Laurel Hell, which is more of a traditional pop album with her signature cynicism and heavy topics about relationships and her own mental health journey. The Land is Inhospitable and So Are We kind of takes a break from that. It's more folk oriented. It's a slower album, which coincides with, I think, the sadder element to it. With Laurel Hell, it's more processing a breakup, which coincides a lot of different emotions. The Land is Inhospitable is more just focuses on the depressive aspect, which isn't
Real-
necessarily for everybody,
real talk.
but it's real. It's a real album, basically encapsulated in the song which has become the most popular off of it, My Love, Mine, All Mine. It's a shame that song is only 2.5 minutes. I mean, that could be 10 minutes long. I think that's perfect. It really encapsulates the album, and I think just her as an artist. I should shotgun this like in the middle of that.
Spill everywhere.
Well, if it's like this, I do that. Alright, wait. I will
I don't
shotgun
want you to
this.
shotgun it.
I
Man.
will.
So we are in the top 3, and my number 3 album of the year is Maps by Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel. So last year, my favorite album of the year was Ants From Up There by Black Country New Road.
Hard topping that.
No, yeah, you can't really top that. But this one, even though it's my number 3 pick and that was my number 1, I think they are sort of similar in a way because both of them like totally blew my mind when I first heard it and made me rethink like what music could be, I guess. And then also they have very like the lyrics are
Yes.
so unique. So each song is basically like a slice of life journal entry from Billy Woods, just talking about like stuff he did that day or like things that he saw out in like nature or whatever. It's basically like spoken word poetry over these like very colorful like experimental beats by Kenny Siegel. It's also an album that sparks creativity, I'd say, from like the cover art. I love the cover art. It's just
Might
like,
be one of the best cover arts of the year. Yes.
I'll like make it bigger on
Yeah.
the screen, but
Expand that.
yeah. Also just like his rapping, and he has like so many awesome pop culture references. These are some of my favorite lines. Whole entourage on the couch, buried in their phones. He said it's 6 G's an ounce. I played it off. Waited the appropriate amount of time to bounce. The nose is pine sol and turpentine, but the taste remind me of Jamaican oranges that look like limes. It's a party outside, some half, some overdressed. They was going off during Playboy Cardi set. There are many more.
Anyone that references Cardi.
Yeah,
Win
anyone
my
who
book,
references
yeah.
Cardi is like automatic dub
Yes.
for me.
Yeah.
Like you can't top that.
So coming in at number 3, get this.
Oh.
It's a repeat. It's
Oh.
Maps by Billy
Wow,
Woods and Kenny
look at that.
Siegel.
We're just, like,
Oh my
insane.
goodness. So not to tread on Dan's wonderful commentary, but I think in particular for me, the lyrics didn't stand out as much to me
Really?
as they did for Dan. For me, it was just the production value that really took it away from me.
Interesting.
That was so that's something I really think is cool about abstract hip hop, which we saw with Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist, that it's just these beautiful beats that are just simply spoken over. So it's not, you would think that they're conflicting in a way because you're not complementing the instrumentals with your vocal presentation, but this certainly doesn't take anything away from the instruments in this album. I think they complement each other.
That just
great.
speaks on how good the album is because like
Yes.
we both pulled out different things
Right,
that we
exactly,
liked
like,
about it.
Basically the opposite
Yeah.
things that I thought the instrumentals
'Cause
were
basically
the best.
like everything about it is just insane.
No, I think it's a great album, very deserving of the number 3 spot.
Okay, I'm gonna
See, I could just do a mini shuck.
My number 2 album of the year is Burning Desire by Mike. You know, I'm an anxious person, and a lot of the times this is like reflected in the music I listen to. Sometimes I want to listen to something really explosive or like cool or groundbreaking or new, but a lot of the time I'm just looking for something to like calm me down.
Soothing.
Yeah. And that is exactly what this
Yes,
album is.
that's totally what I would. Yes.
And I will say that I found this like a few weeks ago. The first week, I'll put a screenshot,
Yeah.
but I listened to it like 300 times in 1 week. Not
the Last
I didn't.
FM,
Yeah,
yes.
I didn't like play the album 300 times. Like the amount of times I played the songs added up to 300, but still, that's like
Given the amount of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
very crazy. Mike is such a great rapper. If you don't know him, he's like affiliated with Earl Sweatshirt. They kind of have a similar rapping style. He's actually
Yes.
featured on Voir Dire.
And
Yeah.
then Earl Sweatshirt's also.
Yeah, and Earl
featured on
Sweatshirt's
it,
featured
so
on
they
this.
complement one each other.
They have similar like deliveries. It's like
Yes.
kind of mumbly.
Mhm.
They both have like pretty deep voices, and they both kind of have like this undertone of sadness like throughout.
Yes.
There are like 4 or 5 songs in here that are like life changing.
Yeah.
The one with Earl Sweatshirt, Please Don't Cut My Wings, and then You Think Maybe, and then Muscle Beach, and Let's Have a Ball. Those are some of my favorites. I saw Mike live earlier this year before this album came out, and I'll put the picture up. I got a picture with Mike. I'm
He's a
not
day
gonna lie.
one fan.
And yeah, it was a great show, and that, I don't know, kind of like more of a personal connection, I
Right.
guess, because I actually like met this guy, and I also met Neonte, who's featured on Muscle Beach, and he performed at my school, so that was like, yeah, and I like had a full conversation with him. Do yourself a favor, check this one out. I showed it to Garrett.
Yes.
He liked it.
Certainly worth it. Yes.
Certainly worth your time.
Number two is going to be Raven by Kalela. So
Boom.
I'm surprising myself here. I
Yeah.
kind of pride myself with listening to very dense albums that have a lot to unpack. But
Yeah.
meanwhile, for number 2, we're looking at a very casual electronic R&B dance album. I tend to not like to have easy listening albums ranked so high. I like when there's more to unpack, but I surprised myself. I think that this is something I would describe as an overcast album. If it's just a lazy day and you're hanging out, it's very
that's nice. You
comforting.
need albums like this.
Yes, exactly. So this fits it perfectly. This is something I listen to driving in the rain. I think that's the perfect aesthetic. So if you can get that kind of vibe in your mind, this album fits the bill perfectly. I'd say conceptually there's nothing too much going on there, which, you know,
You don't
is,
need that all the
yeah,
time.
exactly. And I think that's something I realized this year with some of my albums is that they don't always have to be these grand projects. You can just have an enjoyable R&B album that Kalela does very well.
So, this is the moment you've all been waiting for.
What's the album title, Dan?
My number. Okay, you know, we're not gonna do that. So I actually cannot say the full title because it has a bad word in it that I cannot say.
No,
But it is the album by Jim Legacy, Homeless Pop Music. I will call it. That is my number 1. So Jim Legacy, he's worked with a lot of very big names that you may not expect. Like he actually worked on one of the biggest hits of the year, I'd say, Sprinter by Dave and Central C. He does background vocals on that in the part in like the back half of the track.
In a minimal fraction, eat good, I got indigestion. They're slow in my hood, no
That's
action,
Jim.
can't get rid
That's
of
my
my
He's in the background, and he's also featured on the new Fred Again song 10. Yeah, he
I'm a
does.
bad fan.
He does both verses on that track, and he is not credited for either song.
Unsung hero.
So I'm gonna do my best to
Give
give
him
him
props.
his flowers right now. So this album is it's a blend of many different genres. You've got like alt R&B, hip hop, Afro beats, and then you also have stuff like Jersey Club and kind of like drill, and it's literally everything you could want. So one thing I like about this album is that it contrasts to a trend that's been going on in hip hop a lot that I don't like. I personally don't like it at all. It's like a lot of hip hop artists, like more mainstream, have been putting out these like just very long hip hop albums. Like from this year, you got like the Pink Tape by Uzi and then Drake's For All the Dogs. Both like an hour and a half long,
Right.
with like 20 plus songs on it. But the thing is, like, you don't need that many tracks. They don't like
It's
have a
oversaturated.
cohesive
Yes.
story.
Right.
It's just for like the plays. I feel like what Jim Legacy has done is the complete opposite.
Right.
And he has a 25-minute album of like, and every song is good, and you have like a theme running throughout. Pretty much every song is about how he's like sad after he broke up with his girlfriend, which is like, I don't know, like you don't hear like
Rappers talking
about
yes.
that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like a whole album.
Right,
really.
right.
And
It's a more vulnerable thing that's
Yeah.
not really popular
He's
with
just-
the rap
yeah,
motif.
he's just like sad on these songs.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about what he does here is that he like takes that subject matter that's in like so many different songs,
Yeah.
and he tackles it in such a unique way. So for example, on the song DJ, the opening track, he says, "You used to promise me you'd teach me how to DJ. You had your decks and I would go to pick a song. I chose a song, it reminded me of all the things we used to do." And then the chorus is, "No more, you don't want to teach me how to DJ anymore." I just think that's such a creative way to approach that
To
topic.
process a breakup, right? Instead of just
it's
saying we broke up. Yeah.
That's such an interesting way to put it, and like
Yeah.
something relatable. But it's like it's so specific that it becomes relatable.
Yeah.
Because you take
It's
these
the
lyrics
little
and you're
things.
like, this is a
That's- yeah.
real life experience that this
Yeah.
guy had. And then I will shout out the song "Your Marge's Crib," which is the song "Stay" by Rihanna, and he loops like a sample of it over this drill beat, and he's just rapping about how he's like sad that he used to like go to his girlfriend's mom's house and now he like doesn't anymore. It's
It's a very
so
ambitious
interesting.
song,
It's
which
so
pays
great.
off so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the cover art because it kind of like the cover art plus the music, you really get a sense of like where Jim is from, like from London and stuff. And I've never been to London, and I feel like
Snapshot.
that is like
right.
that's where I live when he talks about it in this album. From this album and like how good it is, it like wherever you're listening to it, it makes you feel at home. That is where I will stop talking about it, but I would recommend this project to anybody. Shout out my friend Jack. Jack recommended this album to me. It's my favorite album of the year. Shout out Jack.
All right. So the long anticipated number one album of 2023 for Garrett is Destiny by DJ Sabrina, the
Whoa.
teenage DJ.
Wow.
Which, first of all, what a name for an artist. I love Sabrina. I'll just refer to her as. But I think it's somewhat ironic because if you look at her Instagram, it's very clear she takes this whole music making thing kind of in a more fun aspect. She doesn't take herself very seriously, shown by her name. And that's exactly what this album is. It is extremely fun to listen to, as shown by the 4-hour runtime that this album is.
That's crazy.
So
That-
nice
that
and
is
pretentious that my
crazy.
top album is 4 hours long. Too.
I ain't listening to all that.
Yeah, no.
I ain't listening to all that.
I don't blame you. But for those that do listen to it, is quite the experience. I listened to this front to back on my drive home from school, so I was able to actually listen to it like in a row and get a feel for it. And my takeaway from it is that, I mean, it's a dance pop album reminiscent of just the 80s aesthetic. If you think of Miami Vice, just neon and
That was cool.
80s, that's what this album is. The album basically follows a night out, so, and just the emotions that come with getting ready to go out, which is the opening track. I mean, it's as if you're driving out from work with your friends, getting ready to pregame, and then it follows you know, you starting to get out and hitting the dance floor, and then you're starting to feel down because the album covers someone trying to get over a past relationship while you're still trying to move on and have, you know, a night out with your friends, but it's kind of, you have those nagging memories and you can't quite shake it. So it follows those highs and lows, you know, bumping into new people, having new ventures on your night out in the city. Honestly, of the 40 songs, there are too many to reference, but I think my favorite is Will You Be Mine. That is very reminiscent of just, I would say, honestly, Call on Me, which is a take on the Steve Winwood song Valerie, but just like very obviously 80s aesthetic. That's one thing that most people might have a problem with this album, is that it might be too blatant in the fact that it's ripping off the commercialization of the 80s aesthetic, that it's just trying to go for that sound which has gotten very popular in pop music, that 80s saxophone type vibe, which, I mean, just off the top of my head, you see a lot with the 1975, which is a band I really like.
Like M83.
Right. What you could criticize it for is the fact that it is unapologetically just trying to cash in on that 80s aesthetic, which is very easy to resonate with too. It's very easy to listen. But I would counter that with saying, since this is a 4-hour album, obviously some thought went behind it, because if you're just trying to make an album that people would listen to, you wouldn't make it 4 hours, because that certainly scared me away at first. I mean, I didn't think of listening to it. But in conversation with the part that it is playing into this 80s aesthetic for being commercial, I think that there is insight that it's just, we live in a very commercial world. And what do we choose to do in an environment which pushes very synthetic things upon us? Basically the theme of the album, we choose to dance, we still choose to go out, despite the baggage that we have from previous relationships, despite the fact we're always being bombarded with things that are very easily palatable, we still choose to have a good time, and this album just speaks to that. I mean, it's not necessarily the most philosophical album as ones we've talked to before, but there is a sentiment there about something as simple as going out and having a good time. There's actually a lot of dynamics that play into that, which we kind of dismiss a lot, that dance albums don't have a lot of substance, but this album proves just the opposite. So for those reasons, it's my top album of the year.
Thank you guys.
And that does it.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching me eat my unfinished dinner.
Yes.
Goes a long way.
Goes
and
a long way.
Occasionally talk about music.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of fun here.
I know we did a lot of yapping this video.
Yeah.
I hope it's not that long. Like, well, I don't know. I hope we said some like interesting stuff though. Hopefully you got some new recommendations. Yeah, that's it.
There's more to come. We hope you enjoyed.
We will see you in the next one.
I think that was fun, man.
Let's go.